Resolved that as per section 152.4 of the municipal act, Council Rowe is probably the same commenced as now we're sitting a regular meeting.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Sutherland, second Councilor Vacirovich. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Now I'm going to turn it over to Deepak and
Sure. Just to note, Madam Mayor, that Councilor Horvis has now left the meeting.
yes.
And okay, what we're here today is that Red River Planning is here, that they've made some excellent changes to the Manitoba Building Code bylaw that we have adopted as council, that we'll be looking at adopting. We had the first reading, and we're going forward with the second reading of. As well, after this, they're going to discuss some of the zoning changes that are that should be also done in concert with this bylaw change, so that there's no conflict between the zoning bylaw and the building bylaw. So on that note, I'll let Jennifer go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder, I have some RP staff with us today. I have Jessica Singh, who is our supervisor of plan review, so he focuses on the building permit issuance side of things and code-related items. And I also have Crystal Wanzowski, who is our special projects coordinator. She does a lot of the communications piece and a lot of the work that went into the bylaw today. So just in case there's any questions that I can answer, I brought my team with. So as Deepak mentioned, first reading was given to the building bylaw. We did have some consultation with the building and development community as follow-up. So we hosted a session. There were 10 attendees. We sent it out to the Manitoba Home Builders Association as well as through eBlast, through our contacts. And most of the discussion related around trusses and not so much the building bylaw itself. So I think that's a good sign that the building bylaw didn't represent a concern and the changes proposed did not represent a concern. We also had a detailed legal review that did result in some housekeeping changes, but nothing substantive that changes the intent of what was presented to you at first reading. So overall, what we're trying to do is improve collaboration and harmonization. So right now we have 5 building bylaws that are different across the district, and we're trying to make them consistent to assist not only with enforcement and streamlining the permit process, but hopefully also encouraging economic development by having those consistent and clear guidelines. Sorry, we're not moving. Excuse me, inside here. And just a reminder in terms of the difference between a building bylaw and a zoning bylaw. You're very familiar with your zoning bylaws. You're dealing with zoning matters on a regular basis, but building bylaws are a little bit different. And they focus on the regulation, construction, alteration, and repair, and demolition of structures, where your zoning bylaw focuses on regulating planning and land use. Your building bylaw talks about governance under which permits can be issued, and the zoning bylaw talks about governance over placement, size, and height of structures. A building bylaw focuses on a building permit, where a zoning bylaw focuses on a development permit. That's the landmarks that usually go along with the building permit. And then lastly, your building bylaw is looking at the technical requirements, and a zoning bylaw is looking at the land use requirements. So what are the changes that are being brought forward? We've clarified the duties and responsibilities of owners, ensuring that required documents are signed and sealed by qualified professionals, that lots are clearly displayed and visible from the street, that work is not to be covered until it is inspected and approved. Owners are responsible for obtaining permits even if the work has already started. Owners are also responsible for revealing and remedying any defects. And buildings must comply with the building bylaw and codes within a reasonable time frame. Duties and responsibilities of the design professional. This is where the most significant changes are occurring, as there is more duty and more responsibility of the design professional. So they are required to provide drawings that are signed by a qualified architect or engineer. They must certify compliance with the building code, meaning we don't have to do that portion of the review, and eliminating some of the review requirements that we need to undertake. And they must also conduct inspections under that Part 4, which deals with the foundation requirements. So By doing this, we're streamlining the permit process by removing our responsibility from Part 4 review on the building permit side of things, as well as the inspection side of things. The powers of the authority having jurisdiction, so we can request plans be prepared by a qualified professional. Permits can be issued on a conditional basis. We can refuse a permit if there are unresolved defects, unpaid fees, or existing infractions. And we can rely on certificates from professionals. So like we were talking about earlier, if a design professional submits us a certificate confirming that they've completed the required inspections, we can accept that. And we can also create an audit program to undertake those reviews. Permit requirements. So we are introducing an expiration on permits if work is not completed within 5 years. We have run into issues where open permits might be open 15 years and not completed, and it's really difficult to try and go back and address it after the fact. Permits may be required to have reports and documentation to accompany them. And I know this one came up today, and we can talk about this a little bit more, but fences are exempt from permit requirements, as well as accessory structures under 107 square feet and temporary tents under 901 square feet. The CAO did express some concern with that requirement of 107 square feet. Our intent behind that was to pull from the building code where there are exemptions, as well as trying to be consistent with the city of Winnipeg. However, if the municipality wants to keep it as is at 120 square feet, you can't do that. So that's something that can be amended as part of second reading should you choose to go that route. We've also introduced clarification on residential permit exemptions, such as replacement of doors or windows where openings are being altered, and permit exemptions for non-structural work and attached residential decks less than 1.97 feet. And then swimming pools and hot tubs. So there are requirements here for engineering if it's an in-ground pool. Outdoor pools must be enclosed by a 5-foot fence with security features, and hot tubs and swim spas are exempt if there is a strong lockable cover. And then geotechnical requirements, providing some clarity again here with respect to that. That structures within 350 feet of a water body do require a geotechnical report, and it must assess the soil bearing capacity, excavation conditions, erosion risks, and bank stability. There are exemptions for small accessory structures unless there's a risk present, and if there are multiple structures, a geotechnical report may be required if their combined effect is significant. So in conclusion, we are trying to create a harmonized building bylaw for our member municipalities to help and improve service delivery, meet performance expectations, and streamline the permit process. If there's any questions, I'm happy to try and answer those.
I'm going to open it up. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Best way I can do this is hypothetically, I guess, because it certainly wouldn't apply to me. But let's say a person has the skills and abilities to build their own house. Can they still do that? Can
Well,
they apply for the permit?
yes,
Can
they can apply for the permit, but a house does have foundation requirements that need to be engineered under the code. So they can build their own house, but there are components that need to be dealt with by an engineer.
So then in that case, you could get the engineer to do the foundation. Of course, it would have to be applied as part of the permit. Then that engineer would probably do the inspection of the foundation. And then I go ahead and I build my house, and if there is concern from your office, I guess I could hire a professional to do a review and a report and provide that to you guys.
So what
Is that allowed in what we're talking about?
That's not, so I think that's a little bit different. I think, are you talking about something that's outside of the scope of a foundation?
Yes,
Okay, so there is a mechanism in place through the province called the permit dispute resolution process. So if you disagree with our interpretation of the inspection, you can go through that process and the province adjudicates.
okay. But you do also have the authority to tell me to hire a professional to review it.
That,
That's
well,
what I thought I
I'm
read.
gonna let Jazz speak to that.
Let's say if a roof is built which is not typically under Part 9 design, let's say there's roof panels used which are designed under Part 5 of the code, that's when an inspector can go to Part 9 and can find a code reference, then an inspector can ask the homeowner if that, please hire an architect to review the roof
Okay.
assembly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Question.
Go ahead, Rob.
On Scott's question, you'd still need architectural drawings of the whole. Yeah.
They don't need to be stamped by an architect, as long as it complies with Part 9 and they should comply with Part 9, they don't need to stamp. But the structural engineer still needs to stamp the parking components.
So, okay.
Previously in building code, there were mantle amendments fairly long, and they gave rebar details for grade beams, foundation walls, depending on the soil category, and you could choose that detail and build a house without an engineer, but that got changed in the 2020 code. All those details got removed, so now if somebody's building a house, all the reinforced structures have to be designed by.
Go ahead, Scott.
I got a few more, sorry. So, part of the intent here is to reduce the number of inspections. I think we're looking at, we were doing around 10, and this is gonna bring it down to 6.
That's right,
Is that correct?
that's right.
For decks, 1.97 feet, that must be a
Conversion?
metric conversion, is that what that is? Okay.
That's kind of the same thing I was looking at too when, I don't know, I'm trying to find it here, but I can't see it.
Accessory structures,
Not
107?
No, I'm not, yeah, the 107, no, it was the one after that on your slide. Of course, I can't see it here. It just kind of caught me off guard here, right there, permit exemptions for non-structural detachments at residential decks, 1.97 feet, like that's such an odd number.
Well, it's so many millimeters.
Yes, I
600
know.
millimeters.
600, okay.
2 feet,
That's bigger.
more or less.
More or less, yeah. Okay, anything else? Deepak, I know you probably have something that you would like
Not-
to add or talk
I
about.
will, Jennifer did provide this to me in advance to have an opportunity to read it, and I did apologize that I didn't go through it due to budget and other concern issues I was dealing with. But there's just a couple of quick ones, because I felt that the bylaw, when I did a cursory review, was written well, and I didn't have any real significant issues. The only question I have is this definition of authority having jurisdiction.
Mhm.
And when you said means the municipal council and the designated official, that's saying council and the designated official as opposed to and or. And I didn't understand what the intent there was. And then you identified designated officer in there as well, or any other person. So designated officer, I noticed you said was somebody that's appointed by the board, not by the council,
Right,
but it's a municipal bylaw, so
Right.
that's the part I didn't understand.
for sure. So typically a designated officer is somebody appointed by the board to, let's say, act on behalf and enforce the building bylaw. So historically, that hasn't been done by our councils, it's been done by the board. So there might be a bit of a wording correction there we need in terms of adding that as designated officer versus designated official.
Yeah, because you don't have a definition
Yes.
of designated official.
Yeah.
It can't be and,
Yes, yeah,
it has to be and or,
yeah,
right? Because you can't, otherwise you're taking both of their
Exactly.
accountability away.
yeah.
The designated officer, I think, you may want to keep designated official and or officer.
Mhm.
Like, you may say the designated official is somebody that's assigned by council,
Mhm.
just in case, because this isn't,
True.
there's no other act.
Yes.
Like, you know, in the designated officer you used, I think was because of the building, or I mean, the planning act.
Correct,
And in there, it said designated officers by the board.
yes,
But the Buildings Act doesn't say that. It puts all the
For sure.
responsibility at the council level.
yeah,
So I think if you were to fix it, I'd say and or designated official, and just define designated official as somebody assigned by council in the situation if they ever needed to.
mhm,
So just add a definition
mhm.
is the recommendation, but I don't know. if you
That's
guys
fair.
want to-
No, I think that's fair. Like you said, there's sort of a disconnect where the legislation doesn't line up or contemplate a planning district, so I
That's
understand, I think that makes sense.
That's
Yeah.
the only reason.
So that's what
Um,
that.
Beyond that, as council has discussed and Jeff has already brought up, is the 107.64 square feet. They're going with the fact that that's now in the building code, specifically not requiring permitting. In the past, the building code didn't have any of that. But the council's always had the authority to decide on what you don't need. So we've had 120 in the past, and it's had very little risk. The recommendation is, why would we change it now?
Well, I
Stick with
think you're
120.
looking at a 10 by 12, right?
10 by
Like
12.
that's 120,
Mhm.
so it's,
Hopefully somebody doesn't do 11 by 11, and then we've got a problem.
Anything else from members of council? Anything else that you wanted to add, Jennifer, or?
No, I appreciate the time and the input, and I think those are easy changes, and if council wanted to proceed, we could give it second reading as amended
As
with those
amended.
changes.
Okay.
Council, open to that?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll read the second reading of the bylaw. Resolve the bylaw 3 of 2025 being a bylaw of the Arm of St. Clements to provide a building bylaw be given second reading as amended.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Sandra, and second, Councilor Gazarovich. Any further discussion or questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. And now we have a third reading of the bylaw. And we can bring that forward, please.
Trevor's not here.
It's okay, I got it.
Yeah, I think it is 2025, right? But that's a typo in the reading.
Oh, yeah, 2025.
So resolve bylaw 3-2025 being a bylaw of the Arm of St. Clements to provide a building bylaw be read a third time as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Boulanger, Councilor Sutherland seconds. And remember, it is a recorded vote because it's third reading, so I will call, if there are questions, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay.
So relatively painless.
Love it.
What time are you going to St. Andrews?
Their meeting starts at 5:30, and I think I'm towards the end, so we'll see.
Okay. Okay, anything else for, yeah, there was one.
Zoning bylaw amendment.
Yeah.
First reading. Do you want to
Yes.
speak to it at all?
I can, yeah, please. There's one amendment we're recommending as well, because that exemption of 107 carried over into the draft of the first reading. So what we're recommending is that the zoning bylaw be amended, and that's just to be consistent with the building bylaw and the changes that we've proposed. So what the zoning bylaw amendment seeks to do is remove outdated references to the Building and Public Homes Act, remove outdated regulations, refine text and reflect current practices, construction timing, permit application requirements, geotechnical reports, and hot tubs. But we do have reference in there to 107 square feet, so we might want to give it first reading as amended, noting that it would be 120 square feet.
So we have the first reading of the zoning bylaw, Madam Mayor. Bylaw 13 of 2025, so resolve bylaw 13 of 2025, being a bylaw to amend the Island of St. Clement zoning bylaw 5 as amended, be given first reading.
Okay, can I have a move, please? Councillor Spencer, second, please. Councillor Strang, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think that's it for us, unless there's anything else you have for me.
I don't believe so. Anything else from members of council? Okay.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
talk to you tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.
Just
Or
one quick
first,
one.
sure.
So, like with the decks and everything you had up there, that bylaw, is that just St. Clements or is that going to be for the region?
That's for the region. That's what we're trying to make it consistent for all of our members, yes.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good afternoon.
You bet, you as well.
So, Madam Mayor, we can go into in-camera again. Sure.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Jen.
Please, thank you.
I don't think we have any other items left on the agenda, but we have camera
No way, we do, before we go to camera, if you guys wanna do the, resolution for adding those two things,
now. Sure, we're,
and then that's under new business, and then under action is the Oak Havoc Marsh, invitation. We might have to refresh.
I will put that in order.
okay, so the first is adding the Oak Marsh to grand opening as an addition to the agenda. So resolve invitation for Oak Marsh for the grand opening at Kirkland's Outdoor Skating Rink be added to the agenda.
Whoa, there's something really
No.
mixed up
Yeah.
there.
You got Okamic Marsh and
And Kirkness Ring.
Kirkness together.
Grand
We're adding
opening,
those two things,
two
yeah.
things. And
Oh, yeah.
resolve
but-
invitation from Wakamic Marsh for the grand reopening and
Do we do
Kirkness
it
Road
walking?
skating rink items be added to the agenda.
Skating rink parking.
We should call it Park and Ride. Kirkness
So they
Park
call
and
it the
Ride.
skating rink, so it's still the same thing, parking.
Okay, yeah,
So skating rink items be added to the
Okay,
agenda.
changed it.
okay, can I have a move, please? Councillor Bazarowic, second, please. Councillor Strang, any other changes? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I have to take this, I'll be right back. Hi there.
So we'll recess because we don't have a deputy there.
We're almost done.
Oh, you can appoint somebody.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
call you.
still fine with me, yes.
Okay, bye.
Who wants to be?
Bye.
Oh. Who's gonna have an election?
Not
We
today.
said, we
Well,
said that
no,
once you left the room, we didn't have a deputy mayor to take over.
so we were
Gonna
gonna
have
have
an
an
election?
election.
Right on. Okay, so we added those two items, so let's do the resolutions for those two, and then we'll move in camera, because we have a couple of other things to discuss.
Okay, and the skating rink is at what item? Pardon?
Are we gonna do that in new business?
most likely
Oak
let's do the new
Havoc
business.
Marsh is, you just passed it. It's just before this last heading. It's
Yeah,
5.
okay,
Yeah,
5.12, so the invitation.
yeah.
You know what, Heather, we should probably, since the order is adding something in new business to the agenda, we should add all those items into new business as well, right?
It's,
Yeah,
I
that's fine.
can, I just
We'll
do
just-
that one under communication.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I can move it.
No, it's okay, we'll leave it now.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the invitation for the Oak Havoc Marsh for Thursday, May 22nd, 2025, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And Madam Mayor, what we have is resolve Mayor Peebles and council be authorized to attend the grand reopening of Harry J. Enns Wetland Center at the Oak Havoc Marsh Harry J. Enns Wetland Discovery Center on May 22nd, 2025.
Can I have a motion, please? Counselor Hort, or Counselor Sutherland, Counselor Bazarovic, seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, carried. I will tell you right now that I'm not able to go. I have 3 meetings that day. So I would really like to see somebody attend that, and I'm not sure if Counselor Horbis is able to attend.
It didn't look like we had to register, did it?
Well, there were 2 emails, and I unfortunately had missed one.
I think they said they wanted names sent forward.
Yeah, she just kind of said, she said, I wanted to ensure you received the email below, which I did, but I kind of didn't pay too close of attention to that, so.
Was it 1 o'clock yet?
1 to 3
On me,
on May the 22nd, which is a Thursday.
why didn't you?
And they do have a RSVP by this Friday. Yeah. And I think Heather did put that on the amended agenda.
Well,
Why don't we just submit all the names? What does it matter? If people don't show up, it's just a grand opening.
Yeah, that's true enough.
Or submit the people that could possibly go, like, I wouldn't say Bobby put mine, I can't.
So you
I
can't go in.
I can't slip away
You
there.
can't go in, the
back.
mayor can't go, and look what everybody else is
Anybody
doing.
else, other than these 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's what we'll do.
Are you around or no, Glenn's not here
So
either,
Glenn-
so.
So without you 3, the other 5.
He's not, so he, I'm not probably.
yeah. All in all.
Get on board, maybe 9:30, but I think that's the one to go.
He's not even, he has another meeting. So we're down to 3 counselors that could possibly.
Yeah, I've written down.
Counselor Boulanger and Counselor Spicer for sure. The 2 that with the possibility of going.
Okay,
So the next item on the agenda, Madam Mayor, is 611, Kirkmas Outdoor Skating Ready. Code Council like us to be resolved that the administration,
Request our works,
Eric,
direct public works to.
the council directs Public Works to place gravel in the parking lot.
well, I don't know if it's just placing
Later.
gravel, you may have to go and grade it or do something with it first, like I think it's kind of,
It's not far to drive, do that a Bobcat. Throw a Bobcat on a trailer, get a couple loads of gravel delivered, and one of the operators goes and spreads it, and you're done.
You're asking for this parking lot
Graded
to be-
first of all.
to be graded and smoothed out by Public Works.
Yeah. It's
go ahead, Scott.
pothole.
Can I make a suggestion?
They're just scrubbing.
Why don't we get them to inspect it, and then they can decide, they can tell us what it needs. and do it.
Okay.
You
Be resolved,
have them
council.
do an inspection, and we'll give them authority to maintain and add gravel as needed. How's that?
resolve council request Public Works to inspect and maintain the parking lot to municipal standards.
I think we should say that they need to add, we want gravel put there, they might just go and
With
grade
additional gravel.
with additional gravel.
Yeah, you should
Yeah.
mention that.
Yeah, I would.
They just go greater, later.
Okay,
Okay, check that out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
okay, can I have a mover, please? Counselor Pazerowick, second. Counselor Sutherland, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried.
Okay, so,
Now I
Now
think
we
we
can
said
go
we're
to
gonna go in
camera.
camera, yes.
resolve that council recess the regular meeting of the in-camera to discuss legal and personnel issues, and be it further resolved, and further be it resolved that all matters discussed are remain confidential as per section 83(1)(b) of the municipal act.
Can I have a mover, please?